Karen reported my driveway gate to the cops. They left laughing in her face. My name is Marcus Elliott, and I didn't move to Morning Maple Estates for drama. I moved here to breathe. After 15 years of grinding corporate work, cross-country flights, and an eventual divorce that left me wondering whether I even knew what peace was anymore. I cashed out my tech stock, bought a modest but beautiful fixer-upper, and drove east until I found a patch of land nestled at the foot of the Appalachians. My new home sat just outside the boundary of a neatly trimmed neighborhood called Morning Maple Estates. I chose this place because it straddled independence and connection. I could see neighbors if I wanted, or disappear behind my tree-lined driveway when I didn't. I spent the first month renovating the inside. No loud contractors, no parties, no mess. Just me, a golden retriever named Quincy, in the smell of sawdust and new beginnings. Then, I installed a driveway gate. It wasn't flashy. Black steel, sliding, modern but tasteful. It had a solar-powered opener, more for security than show. The installer double-checked county code, made sure it didn't extend past the easement, and even installed reflective strips to satisfy visibility laws. It was perfectly legal. But 3 days later, Karen arrived. I was planting salvia near the mailbox when I heard the tires crunch. A black crossover rolled up, too fast for the curve. The window came down before it fully stopped. "You can't do that," she said. "Excuse me, that gate, it's a violation of HOA aesthetics. It has to be removed immediately." I wiped my hands on my jeans. "I'm not in your HOA." She blinked. "Yes, you are." "No, I'm not," I replied. "I checked the boundary maps before I bought this property. Your HOA ends at number 243. I'm at 259 outside the zone." She stepped out. She was mid-50s, short, tightly wound. Everything about her was rigid: the posture, the high ponytail, even the sharpness in her voice. "I'm Karen Delancey," she announced, like it was supposed to mean something. "President of the Morning Maple Estates HOA. This is a covenant neighborhood. The visual continuity is protected. You can't just throw up a gate like this. It affects property values." I stared at her. "It's not your property," I said, and I followed every regulation. "If you have an issue, talk to the county." "I will, and I'll be filing a formal HOA complaint. Expect a violation notice." She spun on her heel and marched back to her car like she'd won something. That was my first encounter with Karen. I didn't know then it was the start of a siege. 4 days later, I received a printed letter folded into an envelope taped to my gate. "Mr. Elliott, you are in violation of Section 14C of the Morning Maple Estates Neighborhood Covenant. Unauthorized external structural additions, gates, fencing, or otherwise are strictly prohibited without HOA approval. You are required to remove the gate within 7 days or face a fine of $150 per day. Karen Delancey, HOA President." I nearly laughed. It was amateur hour. First off, I was not part of the HOA. My deed, confirmed by both my real estate agent and the county registrar, explicitly excluded HOA involvement. Second, I knew Section 14C didn't apply to any external structure not on Morning Maple land. Still, I tried to be reasonable. I emailed her, "Karen, please refer to the attached deed copy and boundary map. As you can see, 259 Everwood is not part of the Morning Maple Estates HOA. Your notice is invalid. Please cease this line of action. Marcus Elliott." She didn't reply. Instead, she called the police. It was a sunny Thursday. I was working on my laptop with Quincy snoozing at my feet when I heard loud knocking. 2 sheriff's deputies stood at my gate. "Mr. Elliott," one asked politely. "Yes, we received a report from a concerned resident about an illegal obstruction. She says this gate might violate access codes." I buzzed them in, met them halfway down the drive. "She filed an obstruction report?" I asked. "Yes," said the younger deputy. "Said the gate was blocking public access or possibly extending into a utility easement." I laughed. "You guys want to see the permit?" He grinned. "If you've got it." I brought it out. County approved. Surveyor's stamp. They read it, nodded. You're all clear, the older deputy said. Honestly, we figured this was more of a neighbor dispute than a code issue. Happens a lot with these newer HOAs. And then, as they were turning to leave, they spotted Karen filming us from across the road in her car. The older deputy shook his head. She's still at it. She's been here before, I asked. Oh yeah, he said. She's filed 4 noise complaints this month, 2 about kids playing basketball. And last year she tried to get a guy fined for putting a rooster weather vane on his garage. Then he chuckled. She must hate that you have a gate. And just like that, the cops left laughing. That should have been the end of it. But Karen doubled down. Within a week, I received 3 more violation notices, each more aggressive than the last. Gate does not match visual integrity of street. Unapproved construction may influence traffic safety. Community complaints have reached actionable threshold. She even claimed my gate interfered with wildlife flow. Wildlife flow. That's when I realized this wasn't just about a gate. It was about control, and I had become a threat. So I started keeping notes. Every visit, every notice, every time she parked across the street, I installed my own camera, high resolution, night vision, motion triggered, and then came the turning point. It was a Tuesday morning when I found the gate scratched badly, deep grooves along the lower half of the frame, like someone had taken a key to it. My camera caught just enough to see a figure crouching beside it the night before. Blonde ponytail, black hoodie, familiar stance. Karen. I filed a report, but I knew this wouldn't be settled by the law, not yet. This had to go public. So I posted the footage to a local Facebook group. My HOA says my gate is illegal. I'm not even in the HOA. Now someone's vandalized it. Within hours, the post blew up. Karen strikes again. She did this to my mom's fence too. That woman needs to be stopped. I got over 1,200 comments in 2 days. Neighbors I didn't even know started emailing me, sharing similar stories, sharing real documents showing how Karen had expanded the HOA boundaries without proper vote. And that's when I knew this wasn't just my fight, it was everyone's. I didn't know it yet, but Karen's reach extended far beyond angry letters and badly worded HOA threats. She was playing a long game, one built on manipulation, misused legal documents, and intimidation so calculated it could have passed for corporate warfare. And I was about to pull the first thread that unraveled her whole operation. It started when I met Tyler, a 26-year-old school teacher who lived 5 houses down from me, technically still inside the HOA boundary. He messaged me on Facebook after I posted the gate footage. We agreed to meet on his front porch the next day. She fined me for not trimming my hedges below 24 inches, he said, shaking his head. I didn't even know there was a rule like that. There isn't, said another neighbor, Elena, who showed up halfway through our conversation. She lived on the next block and carried a manila folder stuffed with paper. Karen makes up most of the violations. The bylaws are vague and she exploits that. Wait, I said, narrowing my eyes. So these fines, they're not legitimate. Elena opened her folder. Technically, no. The HOA charter expired 3 years ago. I blinked. But she never renewed it. You need a majority vote every 10 years. She skipped it. Most people don't even know. She just kept operating like nothing changed. Why doesn't anyone stop her? Elena let out a bitter laugh. Because people are scared. She threatens legal action, sends emails copied to legal counsel. But guess what? She flipped to a printout. I looked up the name she uses. That attorney retired in 2016. I was stunned. She was running a fake HOA. Over the next 2 weeks, I went from annoyed homeowner to accidental journalist. I documented dozens of Karen's fake fines, tree height violations, mailbox style infractions, lawn watering schedules. She targeted immigrants, single moms, and the elderly people least likely to push back. She weaponized the idea of order to maintain control, and it worked until now. The tipping point came when a retired veteran, Mr. Delaney, reached out to me. She sent me a $500 fine for repainting my garage door, he said I used the wrong approved shade. But the HOA color chart she attached looked like it was made in Microsoft Paint. He looked so defeated, this man who once stood proud in uniform. She threatened to report me to collections over paint. That was when something inside me snapped. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was a crusade. Things escalated when I received a certified letter one Friday. It came from something called the Community Architectural Compliance Board, a name that sounded official, but didn't show up in any county registry. Inside was a demand to remove the unauthorized driveway gate within 14 days or face a lawsuit in district court. I ran the name of the compliance officer through the state legal board. No such person. It was a bluff, an empty legal threat designed to intimidate. But this time, I was ready. I called my attorney, an old college friend who owed me a favor. After one email from her, the compliance board vanished. No more letters. That's when I realized Karen was fabricating bureaucracy. Fake departments, fake counsel, fake enforcement. She didn't just run a fake HOA. She created an illusion of law, and most people fell for it. Until now. 2 weeks later, I requested a public speaking slot at the local community town hall. They gave me 10 minutes. I used 8.5 to drop the bomb. I walked to the podium carrying a binder of printed documents, fake violations, expired bylaws, footage of Karen keying my gate, testimony from 10 neighbors. And I spoke plainly. Karen Delancey has weaponized a lapsed HOA charter to bully, extort, and intimidate members of this community. She has fabricated legal departments, sent fines without any legal authority. She vandalized my property and tried to cover it with lies. This isn't neighborhood enforcement, it's a reign of fear. The room went silent. Then someone in the back clapped. Then more. By the time I walked off stage, I had dozens of neighbors waiting to talk to me. Some crying, some furious, all ready to fight back. We met in Tyler's garage the next Saturday. It was humid and packed, folding chairs, ice coolers, clipboards, everyone buzzing with purpose. We called ourselves the Everwood Alliance. 30 homeowners pledged to contest every fine. 5 elderly residents said they'd file harassment claims. 1 lawyer neighbor offered pro bono legal help. 3 others started combing public records for financial fraud. Because here's the thing, HOAs collect dues. They're required to report how that money's spent. Karen never did. And if we could prove misuse of HOA funds, we weren't just talking about fake power anymore. We were talking about criminal charges. Of course, she struck back. Within a week, 3 of us received anonymous code violation notices from the city. But guess what? We traced them. They were faxed from the HOA's printer. Stupid mistake. Big evidence. And the cherry on top. She emailed my workplace anonymously with a complaint about unethical behavior. Too bad I was self-employed. I posted the email online with the caption, "Karen just tried to get me fired from a job I own." Bless her heart. It went viral. 10,000 shares in 2 days. Karen had officially entered the court of public opinion, and it was not going well. When we first formed the Everwood Alliance, we thought the goal was simple: expose the fake HOA, end Karen's reign of harassment, and help people feel safe again. But that was before we found the bank statements, and before I understood just how deep the rot went. It was Elena, the tenacious neighbor with the manila folder, who cracked the first part of the code. She submitted a Freedom of Information Act FOIA request for any HOA records filed with the county treasurer's office. Took weeks. But when the data arrived 20 pages in a battered envelope, she showed up at my door, wide-eyed and shaking. She's been collecting dues from people for 3 years after the HOA legally expired, and she's deposited all the checks into an account labeled HOA Operating K Delancey. Wait, I said. Her name is on the account, not even hidden, not a corporate entity, a personal bank account. Over $48,000 had passed through that account in 30 months, and not a single expense was documented. Elena and I got to work building a timeline. Each year, the HOA supposedly sent out budgets mostly vague, always unitemized: landscaping, fence repair, security signage, office supplies. But we walked the entire neighborhood and took inventory. No new security signs in 5 years, Common area fence still broken in 3 places. Landscaping paid for by the county. So where did the money go? We found entries for purchases at Home Goods, Nordstrom Ace Bay in Asheville, and a 3-night hotel stay in Scottsdale, Arizona. It was fraud. Clear, undeniable, prosecutable fraud. While we hunted through receipts, Karen retaliated. Tyler, the young school teacher who hosted our first coalition meeting, came home one evening to find his tires slashed. All 4. Police came, filed a report, no witnesses, but we knew. Tyler's camera system had been accidentally unplugged. Only one person had reason to be that bold. And then, 2 nights later, his power went out. He found the breaker box tampered with, wires ripped, switch fused. This wasn't HOA harassment anymore. This was criminal intimidation. So we filed a restraining order. Karen was served the next morning in front of 6 residents and 2 police officers. She screamed about defamation, about how we were trying to destroy community cohesion, but the paper in her hand said otherwise. The tide had turned. Our evidence, deeds, video, forged violations, financial misuse was too strong to ignore. So we submitted a petition to the county board for an emergency review of the Morning Maple HOA's charter. The board convened 2 weeks later. Karen showed up, flanked by 2 men in business suits who never identified themselves. She stood tall, confident, like always. But when the board chair asked for proof that the HOA's charter had been legally renewed in 2022, she froze. One of the men whispered something to her. She pulled out a folder. It contained a photocopy of the 2012 renewal agreement, backdated with an obviously fake notary stamp. The room went silent. A woman from the board, gray-haired, patient voice, asked, "Do you understand that forging this kind of legal document is a felony?" Karen's mouth twitched. "I don't have to be here," she snapped. "This is an attack." And then, unbelievably, she stormed out. Within 24 hours, the county board issued an official statement. The Morning Maple Estates HOM is, as of this notice, suspended from all enforcement, financial collection, or public action until further investigation. And the internet exploded. A local journalist picked up the story from our Facebook thread and published a scathing expose. The HOA, that wasn't how one woman took control of a neighborhood with lies, letters, and a fake law degree. The article detailed Karen's fake notices, illegal bank transfers, and intimidation tactics. By the end of the week, Karen was under investigation for fraud. Civil suits were being prepared. Her bank account was frozen. And neighbors she once controlled now passed her house in silence. The queen had lost her throne. But Karen wasn't done. In one last act of desperation, she sent out an email titled, "The Truth You Aren't Being Told." It blamed me, Elena, and Tyler for ruining the community spirit. She claimed we were trying to take over the HOA for our own gain. She said we'd hacked her computer, faked the documents, and slandered her reputation. But the community had had enough. Her email was shared publicly and roasted mercilessly. One neighbor replied, "Karen, you keyed a guy's gate and forged a document. Sit down." Another, "You should have just left the man's gate alone. Now you lost everything." By week's end, Karen's home was listed for sale. It was poetic. Saturday morning, sun rising. A moving truck backed into her driveway. Karen stood outside, tight ponytail undone, hair in her face, no one helping her. Not a wave, not a goodbye, just Quincy and I, sipping coffee from the porch. She glanced our way, and for a split second, her eyes met mine. No anger, no hatred, just defeat. Karen had vanished for 3 months. No letters, no threats, no knock on the door. Her house sat empty, like a haunted reminder of everything we'd endured. Then, like a ghost, she reappeared, this time with a lawyer. We were served official notice, Karen Delancey v. Marcus Dunn et al., civil action for defamation, emotional distress, and property loss. That's right, she sued us for emotional trauma, character defamation, and even unjust social exile. Elena laughed so hard she choked on her coffee. Tyler, He didn't laugh, just muttered, "She's really going to try it. She thinks the system will save her. And maybe, deep down, she believed it would." We weren't defenseless. Thanks to Elena's FOIA requests and Tyler's documentation, we had a mountain of evidence video footage of her trespassing and keying my gate. Copies of the forged HOA charter, bank statements with clear misuse of HOA dues, signed testimonies from 17 neighbors, and the kicker A statement from the county clerk, confirming she had never filed an HOA renewal post-2012. Our lawyer, Ms. Hartley, sharp as a scalpel, looked over the files and said, "I don't think you'll just win this. I think the judge is going to bury her." But she gave us one warning. "Karen doesn't play fair. If she knows she's losing, she'll try to scorch the earth on her way out." The courtroom was cold and fluorescent. Karen walked in wearing cream heels, pearl earrings, and a look like she was the wronged princess in a fairy tale. Her lawyer, a smug man named Covington, opened with flair. "My client has suffered months of coordinated harassment, false accusations, and organized public shaming. She has been maligned not only by individuals, but by a digital mob, provoked by reckless rumor and amateur sleuthing." When it was our turn, Ms. Hartley stood slowly, placed a copy of the fake HOA renewal in front of the judge, and said, "This is not rumor. This is fraud." She passed out the bank statements, then the gate video, then the forged violations. Then she opened a folder with Karen's own confession, the county board meeting transcript, where Karen said, "Under oath, I don't have to be here. This is an attack." The judge's face darkened. Then came the part that changed everything. Karen was called to the stand. She tried to keep it together, but Hartley was surgical. "Hartley, Ms. Delancey, do you recall depositing HOA dues into a personal account, Karen?" I needed a temporary account. The HOA card had expired, Hartley. "And why didn't you file taxes for the HOA in 2021 or 2022, Karen?" There was confusion about status. "We were a transitional board, Hartley." "Who appointed the board, Karen?" I was elected, Hartley. By whom?" Silence. You could hear a pen drop. Karen glanced at Covington, but even he looked away. By the third day of proceedings, the judge didn't need more. He dismissed Karen's lawsuit as baseless, retaliatory, and constructed on falsified grounds. And then he added, "The evidence demonstrates that Ms. Delancey knowingly engaged in deceptive practices under the guise of HOA authority, including illegal fund collection, forged documentation, and patterns of personal harassment. This case is being referred for criminal investigation." Karen froze. Her mouth opened. Then she turned to me. And for the first time, I saw fear, not anger, not arrogance, just fear. She wasn't untouchable anymore. But she still had one card to play. 2 days after the verdict, someone broke into Elena's garage. Her documents were tossed across the floor. USB drives were stolen. The security system had been cut exactly like Tyler's had been. But this time, we had a backup. We'd learned. We'd been hurt too many times to not prepare. Tyler had uploaded every document to a secure drive the week before court. Elena filed a report. We handed everything to the police. And 2 weeks later, Karen was arrested. Burglary, evidence tampering, trespassing. The sheriff's office issued the warrant, and the arrest made the local news. The photo, Karen in a blue hoodie, no makeup, no pearls, circulated faster than wildfire. The headline, "Fake HOA Queen Arrested in Evidence Theft Scandal." The community, once silent and afraid, was now laughing. Even people who had once defended her turned. "She scammed us." One neighbor posted, "She bullied us." Another added, "But most powerful. She made us think she couldn't be stopped." But she could. Karen's arrest was only the beginning. In the weeks that followed, county investigators subpoenaed her financial records. What they uncovered made everything before it looked like child's play. She had pocketed over $47,000 in fake HOA dues over 4 years, spent it on cruise vacations, cosmetic procedures, and designer handbags, created fake invoices for landscaping, paid to a company that didn't exist, which was later traced to a P.O. box in her own name, filed false code enforcement reports on 11 households. One of those families had sold their home in panic 2 years earlier at a loss. I'll never forget the town hall meeting that followed. One woman stood up and said, "My husband stopped going outside. We thought we were the problem. Turns out, we were her victims. We weren't just angry anymore. We were devastated." Karen pled no contest to 4 criminal counts. Her lawyer begged for leniency, but the judge, who had been exceptionally patient during the civil case, didn't flinch this time. "Ms. Delancey, you weaponized bureaucracy. You defrauded your neighbors, disrupted families, and violated public trust. This wasn't a mistake. It was a campaign." She was sentenced to 14 months in county jail, with 5 years probation and a court-ordered restitution plan. She had to sell her home. It was auctioned to cover legal fees and partial repayment to victims. Tyler and Elena. They each received a settlement, small but symbolic. The gate she once reported me for stood stronger than ever, and now it bore a new sign: no trespassing, not even fake presidents. Something strange happened after Karen left. People talked. For the first time in years, neighbors stood in each other's yards, coffee mugs in hand. We formed a real community council, not an HOA, not a fake authority, but a volunteer task force. We planted trees together, hosted a block party, set up shared security lights and cameras. Even the couple that had been scared into silence by Karen's parking citations helped paint over graffiti one weekend. One retired veteran, Mr. Halverson, stood up during a planning meeting and said, "You know what stopped her wasn't the cops, wasn't the fines. It was all of us, refusing to stay scared. And that's the truth." Karen's power had never been legal. It had been our silence. Some days, I still walk to the end of my driveway and look at the place where she once stood, clipboard in hand, eyes judgmental, fake smile stretching too wide. I don't hate her anymore, not because she didn't deserve it, but because if I held on to that anger, I'd still be letting her control something. She taught us a brutal lesson about power, manipulation, and fear dressed as order. But she also gave us something: unexpected unity. We were once strangers. Now we are neighbors, real ones, not the kind printed on HOA letters or faked in meeting minutes. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever dealt with a fake HOA, a neighborhood tyrant, or someone who abused fake authority? What does justice look like to you? When is it time to stand up, and when is silence the real threat? Share your thoughts. Let's talk about community, about power, about what happens when we choose to no longer play along. Because maybe someone else out there needs to hear that they're not crazy. They're just caught in someone else's illusion, and it's time to break it.